continue.
The ladies of our group are all here. We're still missing a few people we thought might be here, but we're going to get started because we are running a little bit late. And before we begin, I want to recognize KUB Commissioner Phyllis Nichols, who's joining us today. Phyllis has just completed her first term.
That's right. First year.
First year. Well, that's right. Yeah. 6 years left.
6 years.
She said first term. They'll go easy on that. Okay, the December minutes were sent to you for review. Any corrections to the minutes? If not, we will consider them approved. We are joined by 2 of our 3 new members today. Our 3rd new member could not be with us, but he will join us at our next meeting. So I thought that we would begin with a few introductions, not yet of the KUB staff, but for you all. And maybe if you could tell us your name and organization and why you chose to join the board. And I'm sorry you just did this in orientation, but it will be good for the other CAP members and KUB staff to hear. All right, Kira, let's start with you.
My name is Kira Wyatt. I've got crackers in my mouth. So if I start whistling, you know what's going on. And you know, when you get to be this age, you really don't care. I love that. But anyway, I'm the executive director of Connect Ministries. We've been around for 20 years. I have the greatest staff in the world. That since April of last year, we have not been paid. But we've been showing up every day because he asked the question about how were we going through all of the financial changes and things. But we are a Christian organization and we're in service, and we do believe that God will provide for everything that we need, and He has over these years. So it is an honor and a privilege to serve here because we have so many clients who have issues with utilities. And when you're looking at the prices going up, I mean, everything is going up. So how do you manage that? So this is really good for me to understand the process so I can tell people what you can do to offset that with the different programs that KUB and others offer in the city of Knoxville that can really cut your KUB bills down. So I'm in it for that. And then not only the bonus is find out about this new renewable energy and what's going on behind the scenes and how Bitcoin and all of that is absorbing so much energy. I think it's quite fascinating. And I would not have had the opportunity to have the knowledge given had Gabe and Tiffany. I can call these folks anytime if I have any questions. And that's huge for me to have that type of accessibility to people of that caliber in KUB. So it's been a privilege to serve and also educational for me to learn.
It's a privilege to have. Ms. Janet.
So I'm Janet Testerman. I'm CEO of Young Williams and I'm also former city council member. And really during my days on city council was at the onset of the fiber launch and was a big advocate for that, to educate and get it over the finish line. And so, but also, you know, this is something that touches everyone and everyone has an investment in. And I think to really understand the services that are serving our community and the residents to help best leverage and educate others, you know, as to how they're benefiting. So.
Hi, I'm Melissa Hinton. I'm the Executive Director of Trees Knoxville. So we're a local nonprofit we do tree plantings, education. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here. I think the utilities and trees are very closely aligned with vegetation management. We plant trees. I was planning to also serve on the city tree board, and Elaine Reed is on that, so we work really closely with her. But yeah, great trees are great for reducing utility use. People are happier and healthier in places that have tree cover. Yeah, so for all those great reasons, and I'm just happy to be here and meet people, and hopefully we can collaborate more.
And Nancy is another new panelist.
Yes.
Friedrich, and I call myself a community volunteer. I'm a retired corporate world Knox County school teacher, and now I'm work probably primarily with Volunteer Ministry Center. And so we hear us everything talk. When one of our the mission at VMC is to keep people housed if possible to prevent and end homelessness. But so many people call in and say, I have no utilities. And so we've got this hotline to KUB to help us, those individuals that need the support. And to try to understand that a little bit better and to know how to help all of our neighbors that are in need of utilities. I'm just excited to learn more about this.
Laura?
Yeah, so Laura, I am the Americas Manufacturing Director for Dow Chemical. So we have a facility here in Knoxville, but we also have 6 others in North America and 2 in Latin America that I'm accountable for. So obviously, we really own KUB for all of our utilities. So we've had a good relationship with them in my time here. We're also one of the early adopters, I think this is correct, of the Renewable Energy Credit Program, because obviously Dow has a big focus on sustainability and renewable energy sources. And so really just being here to understand from a community partner and from business perspective, you know, what things are going on that could potentially impact. My account rep is, I always like to tell him that I'm a very big advocate of KUB too, just in personal life when there's big things going on and misinformation out there, also trying to help, you know, educate people on those types outside of the day-to-day job.
And Wes?
All right. Yes, I'm Wes Whitley. I'm with the University of Tennessee. I've been on the panel now for about a year. I guess what I'll do is I'm the Utilities and Energy Director for Facilities Management and work really day to day with KUB with all the different services. And just really appreciate, like you said, the Representative Rodney and really helps us out quite a bit, as well as the rest of the team and everything. So.
And we will meet, Vincent Jones is our other panel member, and he will be in our next meeting. Since we're starting a new year, I want to take just 1 minute to sort of refresh our memories about the purpose of the CAP. It was formed to provide input on issues on which KUB needed a community perspective. All of you bring really diverse viewpoints and experience and expertise to the table. And your feedback, when you do give us feedback that pertinent on projects, that is then the Board of Commissioners. Some of our sessions will revolve around issues on which KUB needs input, but some are more informational, because one important part of what you do as part of the CAP is to take information back and share it with your about various KUB programs. Just as a reminder, we will be meeting quarterly, and I'm going to send a reminder email out to anyone, since we'll have 3 more meetings. Try really hard to get on your calendar and be here. Joining us today, President and CEO Gabe Bolus, and he has a few remarks he'd like to share.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being with us for a little while and being brand new to us. I appreciate that a lot. Obviously, I've been at KUB now 31 years. Growing up here, been in all different parts of the company. We do a lot of things, as you all mentioned. We're regular 5 utilities across 7 counties, over 500,000 customers, 1,200 employees doing that work every day. So it's a big organization. Blessed to have a lot of great coworkers and folks I work with every day to make our system. But to your doing all kinds of stuff, whether it be Bitcoin, the weather, trees, and so input for you all is a critical. And I'll give you an example. We were talking about 5 or 4 years ago. Should we do this or not? And CAP had a huge impact on us before we took the Janet, the city council. You know, so we know this is we take this very seriously. We want your input. They daily need your input, because we'll have issues throughout the next year or two and figure out the balance. If we could do it all, we can't afford to do it all. At the same time, we want to make sure our rates and our reliability stay high, or our rates stay high. And so it's all about those things that trying to balance throughout our year, because it's very, very important to us. So appreciate you all being here. Please be, and I think Don will tell you, please ask good questions. Don't be shy. If you have something you don't understand, tell us slow down and do it again. But be engaged, be involved. This is your meeting for our board. And so we're here to be, to answer tough questions if you have them, but really for you all to engage and help us be a better utility and a better customer to you all. So I'll leave it at that and turn it back over to Dawn or whoever's next. So thank you.
Our topic today is emergency preparedness and response, which I think is pertinent to the last couple of months that we've gone through in Tennessee. And John Williams, who's our Senior Vice President, Chief Infrastructure and Compliance Officer, had an overview of how KUB prepares for adverse weather or other potential impacts on KUB's utility systems and how KUB manages its response. John's going to be asking for your perspectives throughout the presentation, and we certainly encourage you to share. I think he'll probably be pointing out to you how past cap input, that's a mouthful, has impacted some of the decisions that have been made. So John, turn it over to you.
Thank you. Great transition into this. Season's changing, great time. Just, a few weeks ago, we were preparing for an ice storm. A few weeks or months from now, we'll be preparing for an afternoon thunderstorm. So timely to talk about this topic. This really applies to how we respond to things in general is what I'm going to walk through today, but I'm going to camp out and use it as an example of the electric side, just because it's a little bit easier for us to all wrap our heads around. We tend to feel that a little bit more regularly. Example I'll use throughout today's presentation. I'm going to start a little bit background, and I'll kind of go through that a little quickly to get us back on schedule, and then I'll talk about kind of high-level strategy, how we prioritize things in a storm, how we're organized, and then at the very end, as an example from CAP input of the past, we've recently revamped and rolled out more proactive notifications for estimated restoration times. So I want to kind of show you what that looks like now. And Tiffany's in the back there in case you correct me. With that, we'll go through all these things. I'm going to go pretty rapidly to make sure we stay on time. But please ask questions. This is going to be 1,000 times better if you all ask questions along the way. There'll be a few times I'll stop and ask, but if I don't, I'd much rather spend time answering your all's questions than you all having to suffer through me talking straight, nonstop. And people in the back row can attest to that. So, okay, so kind of walk through this real quick. Let me just start with, since we're talking about electric level set from a system perspective. Gabe touched on this a little bit. Electric's our largest service territory. It's also the same service territory we have fiber. Really from a geographic perspective, Norris Lake to the north, to the south, Dollywood exit-ish to the east, Cedar Bluff exit-ish to the west. We get power from Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA. We get it at 10 different delivery points and then move it across 64 substations. Those are kind of community, Maynardville, Powell, Carnes, South Knox, Holston Drive. Those neighborhood communities we're associated with, there's probably a substation that's serving those in those areas. Those substations are interconnected, so lots of stuff connecting all those for reliability purposes. And that's kind of it. You can see some other stats that are up there. 5,500 miles of line, about 22% of that's underground. So just some general ideas of kind of level set of what we're talking about here. As we march into I need to start with a little bit of humble pie. History tells us Mother Nature's undefeated. We've seen it. We do our best to prepare to build a resilient system, but when she flexes her muscles, we just play catch up. So I use this as a great example. So this is actually right at Lakeshore Park to this side, Veteran Cemetery on that side where the tree fell from, Westland Drive, North Shore, just kind of give you an idea. Not that long ago, upgraded all the infrastructure. That's a concrete pole, so it's newish, really sturdy. New hardware, new lines, all that kind of stuff. And in this particular storm, wind blew really hard. That pine tree that was outside of our trim zone fell and tore up all of and made a mess of the road. So just a good example of no matter what we do, there are times in which we have to respond. So we do a lot of things to prepare to get ready, but really our job is to invest in our people and our systems so that when that happens, we're ready to go. I'll start with, you mentioned you love your people, you got great people, we do as well, we're very biased, but times of old, you can see the black and white picture, so the upper one there was, mid-1980s water main break, and we had the blizzard of 93. Our responded and did great work in those times, and then the color pictures are from this past January with similar water main breaks and similar snow-like events. And our people over time have responded. They're fantastic, and they're battle when it comes to preparedness and response and all those kind of things. We do, however, spend a lot of time investing in our systems, and then this is just, again, a snapshot of the electric side, so we do this in other systems as well. But on the electric side, we've been doing this thing called Century 2 now, and in that time, we've done a lot of really good things to maintain, improve, replace our infrastructure. That's evolved a lot. What you see in the picture there is kind of a newer evolution towards grid modernization, using technology and the benefit to be able to create intelligence on our system. So we've applied more than 500 of these smart switches out there, so that when there is an outage, we can minimize the disruption to our customers, isolate that down with that technology. You'll be glad to know.
Well, I was just gonna ask a question. You said to interrupt.
Please, any.
Back on the lake shore picture, I live very close to there, and it's interesting to me over the last couple of years, all the work, along North Shore and Morel that went into upgrading all those poles and everything. But what kept going through my mind was, why aren't we going when we were doing all of that work? I lived in Texas for a number of years, and I can tell you that infrastructure underground is kind of amazing. So, I was just curious about that.
Great question. And good news is I'm ready for that one. We've been asked that question before. So the answer is we are trying. We invest about $3 million a year into what we kind of call strategic undergrounding projects, which is usually usually a little bit over a mile or so. Exceptionally expensive. So when we kind of look at how we balance things, Gabe touched on this: safe, reliable, affordable. That affordable piece comes in really heavy in this particular deal. So 5,500 miles of overhead line, a little bit of that do that. So let's drop that down to about 5,000 to keep even numbers of overhead line. If we were to move that underground, that's about $1.5 million to $3.5 million plus per mile. If you do the math, that's over $10 billion underground. That has nothing to do with customer equipment. That's just back of the napkin math of getting it underground. If we were to then say, okay, how would you approach a $10 billion project? If you did it over 30 years, double everyone's electric bill. So if the average bill is around $120-ish, it would go to $240. Our current reliability right now, and you'll see it on the slide, is like 99.9845%. You'd basically double the bill to try to get to a couple of decimal points improvement in reliability. So what we've done instead, from an affordability perspective, is technology like this, with hardening the system, with things so that we can minimize it and isolate it down, because we best impactful use of the dollar that our customers are giving us. Now, there is more and more going underground. You see that with new development, with new things that go on, more and more of that from an aesthetics perspective, from a reliability perspective, developer installed, developer paid for stuff, but that goes underground. We would love that. It's just hard to convert. And so we're doing it in those areas where vegetation management is not a good solution. So we spend about $15 million a year on vegetation management. But there's places where even the best vegetation management practices are still ineffective, just because of the canopy and all the things that are there. So in those cases, we try to find ways of getting that underground where we can. So we're ramping that program up. We hope but it's small incremental steps. But it's a great question. It's a very obvious question, and it's always asked either from a reliability or from an aesthetics perspective. Yeah, I'm glad you asked it. It was good.
Next question.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the customers are served fully automated infrastructure.
Yes.
Can you elaborate about that? Because I can see the benefits of it, but I can also see a problem with it. I need to understand, are we talking about people who are going out and actually checking boxes, meter boxes? And when you're talking about fully automated, that you have a computer system that's already able to read that and you don't have to have the human element.
So all of our meters are all fully automated, 100%. So very few of our meters, now there's some industrial customers and a few things where we read those manually, but all the meter technology was converted many years ago, and it's all fully read remote outage. We get a notification immediately when there's an outage. So all that's there. What this is really referring to is these smart switches. These wonderful devices right in here that they're putting up on these poles. So when you look at one of those community stations, 4 stations, they have several circuits that go out feeding those areas. So think about mainline roads. So think about like Kingston Pike. You've got circuits going out Kingston Pike, and then they branch off into back roads and subdivisions and all these kind of things. We put these devices along the way so that if a tree falls on a back road, it's not going to back all the way up and knock out customers all the way back to the substation. It will intelligently see where that's at, close it in, isolate that in on just affected, and keep everybody else in. So that 35% is there. Coincidentally, I went and looked, of the CAP members, 10 of the CAP members are behind one of these devices now. And most of them will be out there June of 2029, but we're just steadily rolling those out behind our fiber deployment. So fiber technology, the fiber connectivity is what allows us to do this. So it's following the fiber build out.
And the second part of that has to do with the underground, the benefits of it. So if there's ever some type of maintenance issue, how quickly is that resolved, and what's the cost associated with it?
On the underground side?
Yeah. What are the benefits? I really want to know the benefits, because the obvious benefits are, I know what those are, but when you're looking to repair underground, how quickly can you guys repair it?
Yeah.
How quickly can you identify it? And what would be some of the downsides of the underground?
On the underground side, really the cost is really on your downside. It's not incredibly, it does take a little bit more time to find the you can't see it.
Yeah,
So there's things you've got to do to hook things up, to test it, and there's ways to do that. That does slow it down. We usually have parallel circuits, and a lot of times to be able to, like in a subdivision, a lot of times we'll have 2 runs through there so that we can keep one in. It does slow down restoration. It does take more time because you got to pull things out and push it back through. The clear advantage is you eliminate the tree issues, and trees are by far our leading cause of outage. So you eliminate those tree-related outages, so by better than you would be with an overhead
what's
circuit.
the life expectancy of those?
It's less because you've got heat involved in there, so it's what 30 plus years. I mean, we've had cable in there longer than that.
Right.
So yeah.
So, yeah, you do.
So talking about the cost of underground, and again, not to light share, but again, kind of to that point, I presume an analysis has been done on, yes, the cost of burying the lines, but is there not sort of, when you say bills would double, well, your repairs, I presume, would go down, the cost of, the frequency of events would likely go down. Would there not be a cost?
Savings.
Probably not balance out, but a savings that.
Really pales in comparison.
Okay.
I mean, some of our bigger storms in our history cost $3 to $4 million total. So when you balance that, if you have a $3 million storm every year versus a $10 billion, the math just doesn't math. But now I will say, with that being said, there are advantages to underground, and that's what we're trying to go into that at a pace in which we think we can afford and our customers can afford. So no, really good point.
Years ago, we had a really unique water project, placed a large water main on North Shore Drive, and the residents asked, "Can we look to bury it?" We're like, well, if you'll share the cost. We bid the project about a decade ago. We bid the project like $3 million. You're like those overhead lines are great. Just leave where they're at. Just said we had a job where you could dig up the road. Roads would be closed when we dug up. It's still $3 million. That's why we haven't buried most of these lines, because they're very cost. So the guys would but it's like it just showed you how expensive burying wires were. So we backed it off, replaced the poles, replaced the water and gas, and did the job just fine. But it just kind of spoken of, wow, that's expensive to bury.
And to further complicate it, telecom's attaching to us, so they're still there. Their price is gonna go up. The customer equipment it attaches to all has to be converted, so there's a customer cost. So when you factor it in, it just, the math just gets worse. The back of the napkin's bad when you put yeah, great questions. So working through a lot of things now to make the system stronger so that when storms happen, we've got a harder system in place, more resilient system to tackle that. One thing we talk a lot about is our blueprint, and the strategy for storm restoration follows that. Let's start with the mission. We want to be, we exist to serve, so start there. We're about service to our customers. Customers want, reliable electric, gas, water, regardless of what Mother Nature does. I think customers are understanding when it happens, but they're also expecting us to have a plan to get it back on really quick. So that service mindset is front of mind in all that we do here. We want to be a trusted partner, and so we do related to how we go about our work, and estimated restoration times is around that trust factor. We want people to trust us and have confidence that we know what we're doing and working in their best interest. And then on the customer side, again, safe, reliable, affordable customer service. And we really want to make decisions along the process and consider everybody's needs. Those are all really important, and I hope you can see those things embedded into our strategy. So let's start big picture strategy. Storm County use the same map, the same example, which was from Hurricane Helene in 2024. That was our last biggest storm. And I'll kind of use it to walk through several examples so you can see it from different sides. Just to kind of start in the middle for those less familiar with the outage map, a lot of colors. What matters is the size of the dot. The bigger the dot, the more customers are tied to that. So when we think about things, those red dots are like TVA in-feed points or similar infrastructure that are important to us to be able to deliver power across our system. When you get down into the purple dots and even some of the red dots, those are those community substations that are impacting some people. To give you an idea. So where do we go first? A lot of people want to know, so what do you do first when it happens? It's really around those essential community services first. Think hospitals. Regardless of the size of the dot, hospitals need to be on. They do life-saving, very important. So our focus has got to be on those locations. We pivot from time to time. We had a storm one day on voting day. So guess what became an essential community resources? Voting locations. And so we had to pivot really quick and figure out where those are at, which schools and which areas, resources there, because again, that's essential community service for people. It may not be life-saving, but it's important. So we pivot on those, but we have a pretty good listing, a pretty good understanding of what those are. We go there first. Good news is those are often tied to dots to begin with. But we begin working through those. The goal is to get the most customers on the fastest through those deals. So our resources are deployed immediately there and begin working on that. And that picture to the right just kind of gives you work that might be impacting some of that. So as we move forward, and I'm not going to go through every single step, just kind of give you a representative deal, but as we go to the next step, you can see some of those big dots go away, and now we're moving down to that community level, the Kingston Pikes, the Broadways, the Chapel, and getting those other dots that are in there. That picture was from a tree that fell on Kingston Pike right outside Sequoia Hills late 25, and just to give you an example of some of the work that has to be done, again, that ties up a large, so we're trying to get those areas. So first is kind of interstate system, if you think about it that way. Now is your main highway routes you're trying to get cleared up. As we keep moving forward, we're working through that. And then we keep working until all those dots are finished. Yes, ma'am.
So I have another question. Apply in this situation that also applies with some of the winter storms, like when we had the rolling blackouts, right? And you talked a little bit about the ability to pivot based on critical needs. And one of the things that I was never really able to get traction on, and so unique in the community, but we don't really have any chemical facilities around here, right? But for us to get shut down without any notice or advance notice, or to be down for an extended period of time, have safety protocols.
Mhm.
But there are certainly ways to make it easier and ensure it's safer than others. And so, I'm just curious how we get on that radar is something critical. Because with the rolling out tonight, it was like, you're gonna be fine, there's gonna be no issues. And then next thing we know,
Yep.
15 minutes and everything shuts down hard. And that's just, it's not ideal. So, and the same would be said for, when we're working through restoration and stuff, the sooner we can get going, the better. And so I would just be curious, what's my line or advocate to create awareness around that?
Yeah, so first, I think, Rep, for you all, perfect place to start. Fortunately for you, location-wise, you're about as well situated as you possibly could be. Got a major infeed from TVA right down the street, got a couple of substations around you, not a lot of tree coverage between you and there. So all because of that, you should see pretty good reliability overall. The blackout situation was just very unique in that we didn't have time to plan or react. So when we got those messages in from TVA, not trying to disparage, had to make those operational reactions because they were losing generation assets in real time too. It wasn't like they were sitting on their hands. So they were losing these generating assets and they had to react to that very rapidly. They gave us notice that we had to start moving things around. And so we had to carve anybody out at that moment. We really had to move that power around because we had to get 10-15% reduction of power demand and load throughout the system like that. So we had people scattering and moving things around the first time we've ever done it. After that, we've since looked at that, and if we were to have to do that again, hopefully we won't, but if we were, we've got a better strategy where we can better carve out hospitals and things like that so we can be a little bit more surgical.
Is how do I get into part of that
Yeah.
strategy?
I think it's talking to the key account reps.
I have done that. And I did
So
get it
because
there.
of your location, you're going to be a red or a purple dot every single time. There's no way you're not a purple or red dot.
Okay.
So you're gonna get, because you're gonna be tied in there where you're housing, Fort Sanders, Children's Hospital, all the same wires that tie them. So by default, UT's Dale Avenue Station's powering you, that also powers half their campus. So everything is gonna get you priority restoration without you having to really do anything. Because you're gonna be caught up in those community centers just by your location.
I think it's
It's a
important
good
to
point,
also
though.
understand from a priority restoration standpoint, it doesn't mean that you never.
Yeah,
We do
yeah.
have instances
Oh, yeah.
where the hospital, they have backup generation on purpose because we do have those instances.
Yeah.
But as John said, you guys are on a circuit that you're likely gonna be on quicker. But in terms of, so like, are we a critical load and how do we get on that critical load list as a special? From a manufacturing standpoint, there are some rules, there are some guidelines that we have in place to decide what is truly like critical.
Yeah.
And so that's probably from a standpoint, you have got the like, oh, sure, we'll put you on the critical
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
Because you would not kind of meet those guidelines because you're not an emergency.
It's really about life safety.
Yes.
If you think about it, I'll have a slide here in a minute that kind of talks about different priorities from a different perspective, but to a large degree, it's about the voting example, because that was just, I wanted to use that as an example that we do pivot. But in general, it's really around life safety and public safety is really where that starts. But it's great question.
So, but on that
Yeah.
also, is the advanced because,
Oh,
like you said,
1,000%.
they have safety protocols,
Yes.
but a hard stop really.
Hopefully, none of us will ever see another blackout.
Yes,
do
I
it
agree with
everywhere.
that.
Yeah. I
That's
think
really
that's
what
I think that's a
that's what
one-off.
I was trying to figure out, right, with your emergency response procedures, is there now, like, whatever, has that been considered?
We've got a much more surgical approach to, if we were to have to drop load, and part of what we're doing as well, through some of the renewable energy stuff and the grid modernization stuff, we're looking at battery storage, we're looking at a lot of things so that we can get those targets without having to impact customers. Ultimate end state is if we have ways and means in which we could generate or have battery backup to get us to 5 to 10% at some point. Until then, though, we went through after the fact and went through and have a much more surgical approach so that cobbling something together, because it never had been done in the history of KUB or TVA, Now we've seen it done before. We've got a better blueprint, a better template next time that would involve notice if possible. It would also involve being and how we go about doing it. No, great questions. Thank you. One thing I do want to point out about this map is there's still a lot of dots on there. So in this particular event, we're down to 1,000 customers out, and we've got over 100 dots. So the work continues, even though our customer count went from 30-something thousand down to less than 1,000, the work is still not even halfway done. So there's a process that goes on well beyond that, even though at a time or 10 customers at a time. So work is still going on well after those initial bigger pockets of customers are restored. Okay, before I move on there, any questions about the strategy, the priority? Because I'm going to switch over to structure and process now. So one of the things we adopted right around 2008-9-ish was an incident command structure, national incident management system. It was born out of wildfire. So think about a California fire with local, state, federal agencies all coming together for a very big event. And they built this. It has some military ties to it as well. The key thing here is not all the words I've got on there. It's really two key points. One, when we have a major event, we pivot our organizational structure for the event. So we have one of these structures in place for each of the utilities. And we have some nuances even by season at times. But when we do this, this allows us to bring in resources that may not be tied to a particular utility. Good example, we're talking about electric. We have a construction workforce in our underground, which is gas, water, wastewater, of over 160 people. They're awesome. We love them. And in an electric storm, they can do a whole lot of useful. Clear roads, they can deliver materials, they can be extra hands, moving things on a crew. So we've got the ability to leverage them. But to do that, we have to have a system that allows that to happen. So what this does is allows us to expand out and bring in people who be involved day to day in an electric event or a gas event or a water event. It allows us to scale, which is the second point. We can then scale that small storm, big storm, small event, big event. We can bring in and multiply our resources because resources are your biggest constraint. It just takes hands. Ultimately, somebody's hands have got to lay on wire or pipe to fix it. And so the more hands we have in the field that can do that, this is how we get there.
So what does the training consist of with those expansions?
So it's really the training, this group of people at the top. So we train, so for example, we have a branch that covers damage assessment. So in a major event, our line workers, our first responders need to be fixing stuff. But the smaller events, those smaller dogs, people who are trained, engineers, people that work in our meters group, some of our customer areas, they can go out in teams and assess damage. We train them on what to look for, what to document, what to take pictures of. If they can tell us, is there a tree on a line? Is a pole broke? In general, what kind of materials do we need? So what that allows us to do is all that information flows in while other people are fixing stuff. Mm-hmm. And then we can go out there and clear trees, clear roads, deliver materials, all those things ahead of that crew getting there. These people are then trained on that. We also, the training's helpful. All training's helpful. But what we also do is there's always like a person A and then a person B in those roles in a storm. The person B's training. So they're shadowing that person in real time, because that's where it really becomes beneficial. The classroom's helpful, but unless you're sitting beside somebody through the decisions they make, it's hard. So we always have somebody in a training seat on every operational period so that they can see it. Yeah.
I apologize. I hate it because I love this topic. So,
absolutely.
You get a touch later.
Yes.
Yes, please. I hate it.
See you, Janet.
So that's the structure. If we have time to plan, we do. This again, Hurricane Helene gave us plenty of time to plan. We're stood up well in advance of the event. In the ice event that was coming up, we got advance notice. We had people in place. We even had crews staged at multiple substations ready to go because we know where our trees are. We know ice is bad when it comes to trees. And then we also know that with ice, travel is an issue. So we want to go ahead and have them where they need to be so we're not having to traverse the roads too far. So if we have time to plan, we do. When we don't, our system operations group that you're going to see us through the process until we get ICS stood up, and then they transition some of those things over. In a storm, the two most important resources we have that have constraints, one of them is the operations center you're going to see. There's only so many system operators we have. We can't bring in operators. We can't bring in extra people for that, but we can take work away that they don't have to do. So we pull some things off of them so they can focus solely on the safe operation of the system. So they're making decisions on what it was on and talking to the crews. So very, very important when we do that to get that in place. So really, really important we can see it coming. Sometimes we can't. One of the things that's important early on is to talk to our customers. There's a series of tiles that were in a recent post that our communications group put out there about storm readiness. A customer years ago in a focus group said something that she didn't realize was impactful, but it was. And what she basically said, we were talking about, what do you want to know about how we handle a storm? We were building our web page and that kind of stuff. Her point was, I just want to know that you know there's a problem. Fair enough. So we try to let people know in advance of the storm is, hey, we're watching the weather, we know something's coming, we want you to be ready, here's some things you can do, and here's how we're going to go about our business. And so it kind of walks through some of the stuff I talk about. Those, how do you sign up for those proactive notifications? When an outage happens, here's what we do. Outage, the damage assessment. A lot of people ask questions about, hey, a truck drove by, they stopped, they got out and looked at the damage, and they drove off. Why'd they drive off? I want them to fix it. Well, that's not their job. Their job was to understand what the damage was so that we can relay that back to get the right crews in place. We're assessors, not fixers. So then, from there, we prioritize that work. We try to get everything out in front of those line crews. I mentioned operations was one constraining resource. The second one is our line crews. We can bring in off-system line crews, which is great, and we do that. When they get on site, we want them to be ready to go, because we need to get them to get on the next job too. So all the tree work, material delivery, everything needs to be done in advance of that, so that when they get there, they can pull up, look at it, update that restoration time we'll talk about, and then get to work. After
For curiosity
Yeah.
than anything, but from somebody that deals with a lot of, life and isolation of energy, I've often wondered how, because, I've been through the NIMS training and the
Yeah.
chaos of the drills and stuff,
Mhm.
with everything going on and potential, like a lot of different work locations, right? How do you, there's no backfeed from somewhere else or something else that when the tree crews are going out there, just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, we ground it. So we ground it, open it. We open it, ground it, test it. So if a tree crew's going out on an area, if there's anything that could be possibly energized in that area, we'll go out there ahead of that crew. We got some other crews that put on grounds on the line and make sure that it's clear for them to be able to work safely. In most cases, that's easily to be done. In really, really big situations, especially when those substations are out, we can actually clear it at the substation line as a whole to be able to, if we need a lot of resources working on top of each other, we'll clear it there and let them go, and then bring it back more as a whole as opposed to onesies or twosies along the
Do
way.
you have like physical or visual
Yep.
indicators or
Yes.
something for the people that are in the, okay, this area is safe?
It's different standard, it's a different OSHA standard than a typical lockout tagout, but it's a similar process. Yeah, no, great question.
Yeah, they hang all kinds of grounds and big flags all over and everything, so we don't want anybody to have to ever get hurt, let alone be.
Yeah, it's a big deal. A lot of training around that, for sure. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that we've been fortunate in the past is we generally are at our safest at times in these events, because you've got high, and a lot of things, and they've done a remarkable job in working through those. But there are unbelievable hazards, and some of the hazards we deal with are not even about energy. It's a lot of times, trees are really dangerous to work on.
Or falls.
And a lot of them, yeah, absolutely. So it's that line crews fix that, and then at the end, hopefully, we're giving a notification to everybody that they're back in business, ready to go. So high level overview of that. I just want to kind of give you an idea of a restoration curve, what that looks like for an event like Hurricane Helene. Weather rolled in. You can't see this. This is around midnight on September 27th. Going into that event, we had several inches of rain, and then throughout that curve, about another 3.5, 4 inches of rain on top of that. So lots of rain, lots of sustained wind to 50 miles an hour winds throughout the event. So I mentioned Mother Nature undefeated. So this first part is Mother Nature whipping us right here. And you can see red is the new outage events. The gray are the ones that we're restoring. Number of jobs that are out there. So when we look at this restoration curve, what I look at is more about the jobs we've got remaining. So again, we get whipped out of the gate by Mother Nature, and then you start to see really good impact. You see a lot more gray and a lot less red. Now this was unique because those winds continued. Normally you got a storm that comes through real quick, it's in and out of the system in less than an hour. And so you see a lot of red and then immediately a lot of gray. This one was prolonged. This one is again, 38,000 outages. You see some numbers up there. We had 20,000 from here to right around in here. We had 20,000 customers restored. Really quick restoration, remarkable restoration. But here, so around September 28th, we still had well over 200 jobs remaining of the 1,000 plus that were out there. So there's just a lot of work that's generated in a storm like this, but just kind of give you a different look at the same storm from a time perspective overall. A 2.5-day storm overall, and we were fortunate. Some communities were impacted more. The other nuance in this one was, and the reason I use Hurricane Helene is because we also had a separate ICS set up for water. If you recall, devastating impact along the French Broad River, Asheville, Upper East Tennessee, and so water quality was a huge concern. We're blessed from a location perspective. We're right below Holston, French Broad. Big scene saved us, and we had great people and ability to treat the water. TVA did us a solid at managing the water levels, but really unique event. But in that one, we had 2 different ICS groups going. They were talking to each other, working together, 2 different purposes in that particular event. At the end of the day, I mentioned that 99.9845% reliability. So what's the 0.015% times the things we have? These are numbers from last fiscal year. Largely trees, so over 50% are trees. Over 40% are the ones that are out of the zone, the ones that we don't trim. They're outside that zone. Those are just customer-owned trees that, when wind blows, they fall into our system. This number here are the ones that in the trim zone that we maintain, so we're always trying to work that one and to be better at that. Despite all the Century 2 work and everything, about 25% of the time, we still have some level of equipment failure. And those and trying to get better at with that. And a lot of things we do to try to achieve better reliability: vegetation management, grid modernization, training equipment, all those things matter. So as I pivot into estimated, this is the one that you all had an impact on in helping us form. We've had estimated restoration times for a long time. They've been on our website. If you went out there to them, you could click on the dot and see where you're at and get some information. But we wanted to make that more proactive, engage you all in. And so this was released early December. That's right, November. And so this is a blue sky scenario. So we have an event that occurs. So I hope this matches what maybe you all have seen if you've seen it. Event occurs. There's a waiting period, about 15 minutes we wait, because we might be able to switch, the technology might be able to intervene so that we get people back on sooner. But if you're off more than 15 minutes, that's notification, if you're enrolled, that gives you an outage notification that says, hey, we're aware of an outage at your address, and we estimate we're going to get you back on by, in this case, November 7th at 7 p.m., Blue Sky Day. We're able to on Blue Sky Days because we know what our resources are, and they can be immediately dispatched, so we can give a more precise time. Once that crew arrives, they've got the ability to update that. So if a crew gets there, in this particular case, they realize we can get that, so they're going to update that in the system. Because our line crews know better than anybody what that's going to be. That first number is based on history. We got years and years and years of history that says an event on this type of device is going to take this long. Crew gets there like, hey, not as bad as we think, a lot worse than we think, and they'll adjust it. So you may get a second update on that one. And then ultimately when it's restored, you'll get a follow-up notification that says, hey, you should be back in power. And hopefully that matches the fact that you do have power. And that's that. We did have a storm right after we put that off. And these are one of these storms we had no idea was coming. If you recall, this storm came through late, I think on December 18th. National Weather Service, local meteorologists, nobody saw this one coming. And it came. And so initially, the system didn't know that it was a storm deal, whatever. So it started giving those more precise ERTs. Our operators intervened, switched it over to a storm mode, where it then begins showing a range of time. So where we don't have enough resources on the system at the time to respond immediately, we start giving a wider range to allow us to complete one job before we get to the second, those sort of things. So those ERTs adjust. In this particular case, it was December 30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. So 6-hour window of time to get those back in. And again, that gives us a little bit more wiggle room to be able to meet those expectations. I mentioned we want to be trusted. We spent a lot of time working on this, probably well more than we intended to work on it. Because you don't want to tell somebody it's going to be 2:30 p.m. and it's 2:30 a.m. So we got to get these things right. So we spent a lot of time dialing this in to get it right. And what I was really proud of is the fact that in this first event, we had 21,000 customers. We sent out 5,000 notifications to the 1,700 or so that were enrolled in the program. The initial ones that the system generated based on history were 85% right. When we got on site and refined it, we got it 98. Not perfect, but as an out of the gate first event, exceeded our expectations. Really good. And again, kudos to the people behind the scenes that built all that and made that work correctly. So we're still a learning organization. We're still getting better. We've got to figure out customer tolerances on how, to get that 98 to 100, we can give more updates, but we don't want to overburden people with updates either. So we got to figure out those things over time. Note on estimated restoration times, if you want more, Gresham did this presentation to our board in January, did a much better job, I think you'll agree, did a much better job of going into detail on this. And so full presentation had a lot more slides, a lot more depth if you're interested. Also instructions on how to enroll. Tiffany can tell you how, if you're interested on how to do that after we're done. So this part is really important. I went to a storm conference when I was working in construction 2010-ish, and a gentleman from, I think it was Energy at the time, was kind of given the deal. And his question to the group before he got started was, what's the most important thing in storm restoration? And everybody raised their hand up and said, hey, get the lights back on. Wrong. It's letting the get the lights on. And that stuck with me, and I think it's been part of what we've done here is we can do as much work as we can and work really hard, but our customers want to know when they're going to be restored. And so we've got that obligation as part of providing great service to be able to be part of that piece of it that is equally important to the restoration process.
So what percentage are enrolled, did you say?
It's a very small percentage. We've had a software, Tiffany, why don't you talk? I'm just going to mess it up.
No, you're good. We have about 25% of our customers enrolled right now. So our goal is to many more customers.
Yeah.
But we did a really soft launch. We want this, as John said, we want people to trust us. And so we've done a lot of things to make sure we're accurate before we've made a big promotion on it. But you'll start, we know weather's rolling in. You'll start seeing us put out notifications. Hey, please sign up for this service. We'll let you know when your service is going to be restored if a storm does blow through.
So how do they know if they're not enrolled at this point? Just
Website. You can go to our website or on our mobile app. You can utilize the outage map, and that will give you the same information. It just won't be pushed directly out to you to be an email or a text message.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. So with that, any suggestions, complaints, criticisms, all the above is welcome.
It's a great presentation.
It was very
Well,
good
thank you. I
job.
appreciate y'all being so engaging, asking your questions. It was great. So I'm going to hush and let the tours begin.